We are talking about this breaking news item where Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice have called for a federal crime for that Charlotte light rail stabbing. A lot of the footage has been going around the last 24 hours or so. We've seen the horrifically violent murder of a Ukrainian refugee.
As of right now, he has been charged with first-degree murder under state law, but also Pam Bondi announced that she has directed my attorneys to federally prosecute DeCarlos Brown Jr., a repeat violent offender with a history of violent crime, for murder. They're going to prosecute him for murder. That sentence sounded a little odd, but it's the way it's written. We will seek the maximum penalty that is for this unforgivable act of violence. He will never again see the light of day as a free man. And I think that this conversation, there's a lot of angles to it that a lot of people online are hitting, but I think honestly, it does come back to the crime issue that we have seen in this country. And you see every opportunity that the left can make this political, saying, oh, you're only going after D.C., you're only going after Chicago, when in reality, and this is what we said last week on this broadcast, is that there are problems in New Orleans. There are problems in Memphis, which is in Tennessee. There are problems in St. Louis, in the red state of Missouri, that the city centers, the urban centers of our country have become a place where things like this happen, not super randomly anymore. You hear of just senseless violence, no interaction, no altercation between the perpetrator and the victim.
And no motive.
And in this, you end up with a 23-year-old refugee who was fleeing Putin's reign of terror to get stabbed to death on a light rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina. That doesn't sound like what the United States should be, the beacon of freedom in this world.
A lot of people coming in saying, they're afraid, they don't know what to do. What can we do in these situations? Look, this is the nature of society, sadly, that we live in right now. I think that should tell you a little bit about the hearts and minds of the American people, of the human beings at this point, as much as it is the crime situation, the fact that this could even happen. Of course, this is not an isolated incident. This is one that we're seeing maybe a little more clear because of the footage. Because it exists. We can see what happens. We can see the person walked free. They had an existing record that was extensive.
The United States cities should be free. They should be safe. They should be an example for the world. And we've gotten to a place where that is not the case. And I don't care if it's New York City and Los Angeles or if it's Charlotte and Memphis. These cities have become dangerous places, and not dangerous because of gangs that are fighting each other and you may get caught in the crossfire.
No,
it is when there is an individual that had no interaction with another individual, got on the train, sat down after work, still in a work uniform from a pizza place, sitting down, minding your own business, and the person behind this individual decides to pull out a knife 4 minutes into the train ride and attack and then walk away. And so there's a lot of blame games going on with the people around. Ridiculous, because even in the footage, which is horrific, at first it appears that maybe she was just hit or just shoved. There was not even a scream or anything. But it should get much broader even than just the petty fighting over the story about the media's not talking about it enough or this isn't it. It should get back to, we are the United States of America. Our cities should be safe. Our people should be able to go home from work freely and not be concerned about getting stabbed in the neck on the ride home, not after an altercation, not after a fight, but just for existing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've kind of let the public transit situation become like you're taking your life into your own hands. Like that's become honestly like think about New York and the subway system. It's become less about safety and more about you are taking a risk by using public transportation.
Right.
Which is absurd on the nature of itself.
Daniel Penny in the New York subway, a Marine who stepped up to help people on a subway car, had to go through a public trial because of that. Because the individual that had mental health problems, that was acting erratic and threatening, and restrained him, died under restraint. And Daniel Penny was charged with murder for that. And America knows that. We saw it on television. So to Jeff's point as well, the people that are saying, look, no one stood up to help her, America's collective conscience knows that that happened recently, that even if you make a wrong move or try to help, that being a good Samaritan could cost you financially, your freedom if you are convicted because something happens when trying to help another person. So the America helping each other sense of it has also been damaged in recent years because of good Samaritans that have stood up to help. When we have a problem where the police resources aren't enough to keep people safe, the court system, this individual had been arrested 14 times from larceny to armed robbery to assault since 2011. So this is not someone unfamiliar to law enforcement. They were currently had a pending psychiatric evaluation from the court. This person had been released on cashless bail numerous times. Which cashless bail isn't you have to pay with a credit card. Cashless bail means you're released without having to pay anything. And these are some of the issues that we're seeing. And then the left, because it is the right that is saying, okay, this is a crime issue, has started to push back and try to, it comes across as making excuses for what is an unexplainable act of violence instead of saying, you know what, we do need to figure this out. But their answers, even on CNN, is like, well, if someone has schizophrenia and is a criminal, you can't just put them in prison. It's like, well, if they are guilty of crimes and a repeat offender, then they aren't being rehabilitated by the criminal justice system.
If we're going to have those kind of caveats, then there also has to be caveats to treatment.
Right.
It can't be, well, then you just are allowed to be free and do whatever you want to do because you are able to be designated in some form of mental illness. I understand there are people who suffer extremely from mental illness. I'm not saying they all need to be locked up or put in jail, but you know what? They certainly don't. But there are issues where these kind of things happen, where you're a violent crime perpetrator who's done that numerous of times, regardless of your situation. We have to have plans now in place. If you're going to put the plan in place, say you can't do this because someone has a mental health issue, well, then there has to be a way for them to be still held accountable, or at least someone around them to be held accountable for it.
I want to see a courageous Democrat right now. I really do. I want to see a courageous Democrat that will break with the party narrative that anything President Trump is doing is evil and should be rejected whole cloth. Because this is something that if we cannot solve as the American people, then what can we do? What can we do if we can't come together and say, let's take all the political trappings away from this about the location and the state and the refugee?
Transit. I mean, that's the answer.
But that can't be the answer.
It can't be the answer, but that will be the answer. If we're the United States of America.
That's why I want to see a courageous Democrat stand up and say, you know what? Let's work together and figure out and forget all of our talking points and all of our agenda. It won't happen, but that's what I would love to see because that is the true spirit of the American people.